Okay, so you're going to try to get set up to try to create some sound. So the first thing you're going to need to understand is what kind of synthesis are you going to need to do to create that sound? Well, there's really no way to say without knowing what sound you're doing or what, kind of properties that sound has, correct? So the first aspect is, to investigate that sound or download some samples that are close to that sound to analyze, to try to get a closer look at what's going on there. That's a huge tool to be able to try to get in your mind something that might be close to it and get a sample if you can, of what, that is, so you can analyze what that sound is. And the next tool you got is a huge tool, and this might sound funny, but the sound's rolling around in your head. So, if you've got this sound you're thinking about in your head, how are you going to get that out? Well, I mean, the most obvious way is to set up your microphone in your DAW and record it. Try to vocalize as good as you can the sound. You might have the sound goes, I don't know, whatever sound it might be. Try to vocalize it as best you can and then analyze it, and another part of that is that, with all the sound sculpting you understand now from watching all those other videos, that you might be able to, create something with your voice that you've recorded and then sound sculpted and then added, put in a sampler and done some other work on it, that it might even be like, wow, if I made it this sound on my voice, then I threw it my sample after I did some sound sculpting on it, and it was pretty close, dude, right there, And you might be able to put in a sampler that has all kinds of, ways to adjust that sound after you've sculpted it to add a whole bunch of stuff to it. That is a huge tool, so don't disregard that tool. That is a huge tool. So, and the next thing is that, another huge thing is, okay, you've sat down and with all the information you understand now, what's the other tool you have? Okay, well, you've got all these synths there's tons of synths to download. Free synths all over the place, and fairly inexpensive synths. And you might even buy a fairly expensive one, just one, that's got a bunch of cool presets you've read about or something. And that's cool for analysis. And if you think you're really going to do some synthesis work and you're into it, it ain't going to hurt you to at least just buy one that's fairly decent. And what's the tool there? The biggest tool there, now that you understand, is that, all these presets that are on it. Well, anytime you select a preset, what happens? You've got all the setup that they did on that synthesizer to make that sound. So now you can go through and analyze, what that sound is put together. And there's probably lots of them, lots of different sounds that might be really close to what something you might be thinking of. You've got this sound that's, this thing here, and it sounds, you went through them and listened to them, and it sounds really close to something you might want to do. And so you can go back and you just kind of analyze what all they've done to get that sound as close, to what it is and what you might want to do afterwards. But it's a huge analysis tool. Now that you understand all the parameters and you understand all the modules, that it's a huge tool. To go back and analyze what all those presets, how they're set up. And also as a sculpting tool that some of them might be really close to something you want to do to help you get set up on what you want to do, that you might be creating something different. And, that can be for any synthesizer. Here's that Bazille that, I downloaded just to play around with. And, it's got a whole bunch of presets. And now we understand those parameters. The first thing is that, you've got all these, what the heck is that parameters? You start going through them and, you start seeing they're hooked up in different ways and what they might be doing, to see what's happening with them and how they created some certain sounds. And you've gone through these and, you're hearing some sound that, you're getting an understanding of how they've created some sounds with their synth. And you might come up with a sound, you're like, well, I really love that sound. That's really close to what I want to do, but it's not quite. And so it's a huge tool that now you can go, well, what's it missing? What's it missing? Or what do I need to take away from it? I need to do some additive synthesis to it, some subtractive synth. I need to do some frequency and modulation synthesis, some phase modulation synthesis, some I don't know what all you might want to do to it. Change the envelopes, the ADSR, what other parameters have they used on that synth? It's a huge tool for helping you get set up when you're working with sounds. Because you'll probably find that, you download a whole bunch of synthesizers that you might find some ones that are really cool that what you want to do by just going through them. And the whole thing, a big aspect of that is when you're first starting out and you're trying to understand synthesis, that at this point, that it's another huge tool for you to learn about synthesis so that you can go through a bunch of these parameters and listen to them and see what kind of waveforms they used. What did they do with their oscillators? What did they do with their LFOs? What did they do with their filters? What did they do with their ADSRs? And how did that sound? Does that make sense? So it's another huge tool for you to get more familiar with the synthesizer to help you get set up to creating sound. Now, and I hope that those tools, you know, those 3 tools that we just talked about there are huge tools for you to help get yourself set up creating sound. Now, the other thing is that, you know, understanding what the synthesizer will do. Now, whether or not it's one synthesizer and you really understand what it can do and it's going to work well alone. If not, you know, how you're going to get them to work together. Somehow in your DAW to be able to get them to work together or to make an instrument out of those two. In this studio, we have what's called multi-instruments that I can put tons of synthesizers on here. And they basically, this thing acts as one synthesizer with all these synthesizers inside of it. So I can use all the different parameters and modules from all these different synthesizers to create sound. And I can throw samplers in there with bits of sound to help, you know, work with what I'm working on in synthesis. Any kind of sampler, any kind of synth, anything that is related to either one of those, sequencers, trackers, anything I can throw in there to work together. So something like this is really cool. Because there's a lot of times you'll get synthesizers and you just thought, oh, I wish it had that on it. This one has that thing on it, and I really wish it was on this one. Or that thing has got that cool, that Curve 2 has got that really cool, you know, waveform generator on it that's like arbitrary. And I really wish this, you know, if it just had this on here, I'd be so good to go. You know, well, in an environment like this, if you can find some way to do this to help get yourself set up, that, you know, you've got another huge tool that something like this will do it. So some investigation of how you can get that done in the DAW or, you know, whatever environment you're working in to get that done is another huge tool to help get yourself set up. So, you know, and the last thing I wanted to address on that is getting yourself set up is there's lots of effects. I mean, all kinds of effects in your DAW and all kinds of things that, you know, you can download. You know, all kinds of things that can enhance your synthesis. Things like, you know, any kind of effect that you can put on before the synthesis or after the synthesis on that track, you know, and you can set all that up as a preset. Or if it's hardware, you can do the same thing outside of the DAW to help enhance the synthesis and tools to use, you know, and even inside here in the DAW, then on that track, then I can put any, you know, effect I want on this track, you know, and I can route that to where it's before, pre, or post so that it's, you know, affecting the sounds as I want them to. Does that make sense? Or I can create buses, you know, all kinds of different bus arrangements to actually, you know, I mean, you can get really complex with that, trying to set yourself up to really be able to create sound. And sometimes it might not be that, you know, complex. Sometimes it might be very simple that you need, you know, you need a triangular waveform, you know, and you're going to do a little bit of work on it because you want it back behind this section of the strings to try to add some body or something, or a triangle waveform that you're doing a little bit of work on, but not much. It's just going to add a little bit to this string section. It can be that simple also when you're trying to set yourself up with that. That might need a little bit of work, but not much. So, in getting yourself set up, those are huge things to help you get set up, because you use those 3 tools we talked about, and this, you know, is a huge tool. I mean, this right here is a huge tool beyond comprehension. And you can also, you can also set these up on separate tracks to where you can work with them together, you know, and you can trigger them, you know, you can set up on, you know, on sends, you know, gates and things like that to trigger different synthesizers together. And does that make sense? To create some sound that you've designed, you know, that's going to create some kind of wave file that you can use in a sampler. Does that make sense? So, you know, all those tools are really cool to, you know, and those tools are really good to help you get set up in what you need to do. So, you know, as far as getting set up for any particular sound, that's going to be very particular to your sound. So in the next video, we're going to actually pull out we're going to actually sing into the microphone, and we're going to actually look at you know, a sound on a synthesizer and how we might be able to change it. And we're going to also look at we're going to analyze the sound, a basic analysis of it, and to try to help us see what things are going to be there to help us define how we need to get set up, you know, to do the synthesis that we want to do. So I hope you enjoyed that video, and I certainly hope that kind of enlightened you on a whole lot of different things to help you in the next stage of how that you're going to get set up, and tools to help you understand what you need to do to get yourself set up. So we're going to do a little bit of analysis in the next video. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Peace, hope, love. See you in the next vid.